This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Hello, as we welcome you into this Wednesday edition of Money Moves, VSiN, the sports betting network. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. We're holding it down for the next 2 hours, as always, live from downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino. 1-1 for me betting last night on the ice, so not too bad. I got excited in the Ottawa game when we saw 2 goals scored late in the first period that, okay, we should be able to get the over. No, then just 1 goal scored the rest of the way. Vancouver extends their losing streak out to 8, and then we barely got by with the Lightning money line. Needed overtime and a shootout to get that one through.
It's funny. I wanted to bring this up if we had talked about hockey a little bit later, but the other result from last night, the fraudulent Detroit Red Wings go down to the Boston Bruins. We talked about that yesterday. Just big picture that maybe at like about plus 240 was this team going to maybe be a chance to make the playoffs considering goal differential and the total amount of points. One game obviously does not decide that. But I will say, I was watching that yesterday and going, look at me.
Lightning, as they extend that win streak to 11, now take the top spot in the division over Detroit. Mm-hmm. And Detroit now, I looked up their strength of schedule like I told you I would. Most difficult strength of schedule remaining in the National Hockey League. So.
I think that might be worth, when we get to best bets, it might be worth that. I got to add some more to the hockey portfolio.
Well, that'll be fun back and forth tomorrow with our guests because we have Nick Alberga of Leafs Morning Take, who does a great job covering the league, and our VSiN hockey betting expert, Jonathan Davis, both on the program. So maybe you want to hold off until you talk to the real experts.
Not. I'm going to fire, and then we'll just see if they like it. By the way, also, the Ducks snap out of the slide as well.
Yeah, it was a fun night on the ice, a fun night in the NBA as well, which we will get to in a moment.
And college. It was a great sports night yesterday.
And as we talk about the guests we have coming up tomorrow, we've got a couple good ones coming up today as well. So let's do what we always do to kick off the show. Time to run it down.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is The Rundown.
While you are stuck with us for the first hour today, we've got a couple good guys coming on to join us in hour 2 of the program. Former NFL quarterback, ESPN college football analyst Brock Osweiler going to give us his thoughts not only on the national championship coming up on Monday, but the draft. I'm very curious what he thinks about Fernando Mendoza. He's also, of course, a former Bronco, has a Super Bowl ring with the team from 2015, what he thinks on them being a 1 seed and a whole lot more.
Yeah, I'm looking forward more to picking his brain about these prospects and the thought of Fernando Mendoza. Somebody who works locally and covers the Raiders a little bit and talks to some Raiders media and whatnot. They are very randy about our guy Fernando Mendoza. Some are calling him a better prospect than Joe Burrow, which I would heartily disagree with.
Who are these some? That's what I want to know.
There's quite a few.
Okay. We will also get into a little golf as the PGA Tour season officially begins tomorrow with the Sony Open. Stephen Hennessy of Golf Digest is going to stop by the program, give us not only some angles on how to bet the Sony Open, but I think, too, for people that are either just getting into golf betting or need a little refresher on some angles, you're splitting your bankroll with other sports right now, just some overarching big picture advice for golf.
We did not have our betting, what do you do? Resolutions, New Year's resolutions. I have a betting resolution that I do every year that I failed every year, but I will do it this year. I'm going to bet on every PGA Tour event.
Wow, okay.
Yes.
Let's do it. Let's have some fun.
That's my new betting resolution.
I'm here
Hopefully
for it.
I can get some.
You will certainly be betting on the NFL's Divisional Round. I know you already have one bet in pocket, but we'll give you some of the need-to-know info for the 4 games that are coming up this weekend. Lots of injuries to update, including just the Bills wide receiver room. They're dropping like flies, it seems.
No, they are, but it sounds like maybe some good news for them defensively is that Oliver returned to practice today, so we'll see if that helps them out. But like you said, how tall are you? 5'11"?
5'10".
5'11",
5'11" in these shoes. I got an extra inch.
In spikes might be 5'11". The whole point here being is that they might need you to go out there and play receiver, given the way that room looks like.
Put me in, coach. I'm ready to go.
Those hands.
Courtesy.
Good possession receiver.
My hands are normal size. We're going to kick things off, though, in the association. We will talk NBA. We will have college basketball a little bit later on. But 4th time's the charm, it seems, for OKC last night. They dropped the previous 3 meetings with San Antonio. Not tonight. They were laying 8.5 yesterday at home for round 4, and it was never in doubt. 119-98. They win and cover the number. Total goes under the 233.5. And this was a matchup that had been kind of the OKC kryptonite. And I know they haven't looked the same in the last half of the season as they did in the first, but for a team that entered last night 0-3 against San Antonio, 33-4 against everyone else, that was a must-have win, it felt like, just for them, knowing what could be upon them in the postseason.
Absolutely. I mean, look, we can talk about data and everything. In a lot of these sports, sometimes situation does matter as well, and we hit this yesterday. Look, if you're a championship contender, if you're the team that we think that you can be and are because you just won the title last year, this is probably a game in which you get up for. You've been at home, get an extra day off, just sitting back and getting ready for an opponent that you were 0-3 against. And it looked like maybe it was going to be hit or miss initially. This was a single-digit game. Then you get into that third quarter. Shea scores over 15 points in that third quarter. They come out. They kind of put a mollywop on them and sure enough pull away to end up beating the San Antonio Spurs in non-garbage time here, which ended at about 1:41 left in the fourth quarter. A 127.5 offensive rating for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Were great at the rim, went 19 of 23, drew 7 shooting fouls. That's great, especially against a team that has Victor Wembanyama on the floor. But one of the bigger notes, and again, it's not the biggest thing in the world, but Stormy, what's one of our biggest complaints about the OKC Thunder? It's their shooting. 37% from beyond the arc, 43.8% on above the break threes. They were 7 of 16. That made a very big difference for this team.
That made a really big difference. And you mentioned at the rim, the Thunder shooting against Victor Wembanyama was a big element of this as well. 10 of 14, 71% on shots contested directly by Wemby after shooting 16 to 39 in their previous three. So you go from 41% to 71 against their top player. That'll certainly help you out. And SGA had another great day, 34 points for him, 5 boards, 5 assists, 4 blocks as well. It's his 28th game this year with 30 or more to lead the NBA. We know he's the MVP favorite, but he had this to say after the game in a pretty snazzy outfit, by the way, about how this opponent has made them better.
I can't remember the last time a team's beaten us 2 times in a row in the regular season. So it was a little bit of a different feeling, a little odd for us. But nonetheless, you got to be able to learn and to grow. And this team kind of forced us to do that and beating us 3 times in a row. Nobody likes the feeling, and if you don't like the feeling, you got to do something about it. I think we took the necessary steps. Now, we still have to go a long way to win big, but yeah, we took a step forward in that.
Sorry, I thought that was Aaron Andrews.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like
great minds. The important part about him last night, I mean, you mentioned the stat line, 34 points. In the previous 3 games in this series that they had played against each other, he had combined, Stormy, for 17 free throw attempts. He had 13 yesterday. So the whole point going is, in the first 3 games, one of the big things outside of the shooting was they just weren't putting Shea on the free throw line. He was well under his average. Last night he gets there, so that was also a really big deal. Free throw rate for them, which is essentially how many free throws would you make over the course of 100 possessions. They were at 30.8. That's in the 87th percentile, so they were forcing foul calls as well, so that went in their favor too. Look, this Thunder team's very good. I think we know that. I think this is going to be a really interesting matchup should they meet in the postseason as well. But at the very least, I think we know that this is a team still in the Oklahoma City Thunder. They are flawed, and I think they're a little bit more flawed than they were a season ago. But at the very least, I think we're going to ask a lot of questions like, oh, man, I don't know if they had lost this 4th game to them. But I think now we kind of realize, okay, let's see. Let's get everybody healthy. Let's get everybody out there. They're still the best team in the NBA, to what degree you quibble with, but good performance by them. Should have bet it.
And Shea, what did I text you? Yeah. I was like, this information would have been useful to me on Christmas if they showed up that way.
But we talked about yesterday.
Didn't trust them.
Every bit of it was like situational. It makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, by the way, $4 favorite to win league MVP. OKC is odds on in the conference, -125. San Antonio 3rd on the board at 8-1. And OKC is, of course, your favorite as well to win it all, +115.
That's coming down, by the way. They were like -155 just a couple of days ago.
There were a couple other interesting results in the NBA, so curious your opinion. The Bucks, they close a short favorite against the Timberwolves, get rocked 139-106, despite Minnesota not having Anthony Edwards or Rudy Gobert. Then LeBron and Luka lead the Lakers to a blowout dub. They're 141 points, the second most in the game all season.
So I think those two are interesting. First off, I'd start with Milwaukee because, man, this is on me. I should have sent this in to you guys. Yesterday was incredible. So they come out, they get absolutely smoked against a team that does not have either Anthony Edwards or Rudy Gobert. Okay, absolutely annihilated. Doc Rivers comes out in the postgame and immediately says, I think we had some dead legs. This was actually one of the games on the schedule we really wanted changed and removed. And, we got another one changed, but this one we didn't really get changed. And it was just a bad scheduling spot, but I don't want to make excuses. And then you have Giannis in the locker room talking to the media and going, dead legs. Like, come on, no. Immediately refuting everything that Doc is saying. It was absolutely ridiculous what we're watching here with this Bucks team. It's all over the place. Giannis continues to try to have his cake and eat it too in terms of his demands for this team, whatever it's going to be. They seem to be a little bit of a nightmare. This is, I would call it a near inexcusable loss when you have the second choice for the Defensive Player of the Year and the team's leading scorer that aren't out there. And not only losing it, whatever, that happens. Getting blown out on your home floor. is a brutal result for the Milwaukee Bucks, and they continue to kind of flounder here at this point right now. And outside of the other, you mentioned the Hawks. I don't want to talk about the Lakers.
Boo.
Let's talk about the potential. I mean, I think we got to start having this real conversation. We brought it up yesterday. David Adelman and the Nuggets do it again yesterday. 122 to 116. Again, this starting lineup, Aaron Gordon, Spencer Jones, Jamal Murray, Jalen Pickett, and Peyton Watson. Peyton Watson, again, has 31 points and 11 to 16 shooting. A lot of people have recently been pushing for Watson to have a potential player of the year, most improved candidacy, and he is really pushing for this. In totality, Watson last night, 31, 7, and 5 on 11 to 16 shooting. He was great, and they win again. And as we have discussed now 5-3 in the 8 games since they have lost Nikola Jokic. This coaching job has been brilliant. And if they're going to maintain and somehow finish with a 2 seed in a year that has been ravaged, this team has been ravaged with injuries so far, and we're only at January 14th, this has been wildly impressive for Denver.
I got to say, I feel pretty good about myself. My handicap yesterday, wasn't a real handicap, but I just said, they keep winning games, and they end up doing it. They are in the second half of a back-to-back tonight now in Dallas, taking on the Mavericks. They are getting 2.5 in that spot, total 223.5. Meanwhile, the aforementioned Bucks, not in action today, but they got to pay a visit to San Antonio coming up on Thursday. Both of those teams in a bounce-back spot. We'll see how it plays out.
Should also note that Peyton Watson up to 20-1 now to win most improved. Right behind our boy Conte, Georgia 10-1, Jalen Johnson plus 250, and Denny Avdija remains your favorite at minus 170.
We'll have more NBA a little bit later on, go through the card that's coming up today, as well as plenty of college hoops. We had a major upset there as well, although maybe we shouldn't call it that when it's at Allen Fieldhouse. We know how good Kansas has been historically, but they upset the undefeated number 2 ranked team in the country in Iowa State. So lots of basketball coming up, but we will get to football after this with the divisional round in the NFL upon us this weekend.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools. But what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
So a bet was placed in the commercial break. We were discussing the Denver Nuggets and the success that they continue to be having without Nikola Jokic out there on the court, and you saw a number that you liked.
Yeah, at 66-1, I think Adelman's is worth adding to the portfolio for Coach of the Year. When you look at everything, his profile, what they've done at this point right now, I think it's at least worth looking at such a long number to see what you have there. And again, Coach of the Year, I think it's like in the NFL. I think if we really looked at the list, I could probably make a case for how many guys, 10, 11 in the NFL to make for Coach of the Year. The same thing is shaping up in the NBA. But if they, with all of these injuries, continue to do what they're going to do, he probably won't get it. I will be very honest here. But at 66-1, if you realistically look at the job that Adelman has done, if they come out of this month-long stretch without Jokic with a winning record, and maybe even multiple games above 500, and actually come out on top with an improved record, with the that's going to be something worth adding here. So 66-1 was the best number I was looking around for. So let's go.
More NBA a little bit later on in the program, but let's stick with the head coaching theme here, because in the National Football League, obviously a lot is going on in the coaching carousel. We have 9 openings now in the NFL after the announcement yesterday that Pittsburgh Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin would be stepping down from his role with the team. And there have been a handful of different reports that have come out in the aftermath since. And this morning, a couple confirmations or updates from all of the NFL insiders. Ian Rappaport of NFL Network posting this morning, in the hours after Mike Tomlin told the Steelers he was stepping down, several teams have contacted him to express their interest, but Pittsburgh has his rights and draft compensation would be necessary. That said, teams were told Tomlin does not plan to coach next year. And we've seen a lot of the quotes that have come out as well from Steelers president Art Rooney, who spoke to media today commenting on a few things. He said, quote, Mike indicated that he did not anticipate coaching in the future, wanted to spend time with his family. Right now, coaching doesn't seem on his radar. Also said, quote, I wasn't shocked, but I wasn't expecting that conversation either. I was certainly willing to take another run at it next year with Mike. That's what I was expecting to talk about yesterday.
Things change, though. And if you get a good enough phone call, you might say, all right, yeah, let's see what's going to happen. Now, again, you have to trade for him. You have to do all these things, all these machinations that would happen. But at the end of the day, we have seen reports all the time that flip. Mike McDaniels was not brought back the last time we looked at the Miami Dolphins. So I would expect him, maybe, obviously, it's a favorite that he's not going to return here, and that does take a pretty impactful piece off the board if you're looking at these coaches. Going back to what we talked about yesterday, it can simultaneously be true that it was time to move on from Tomlin, while also he is one of the better coaching candidates that is potentially available. So it's a loss for a team to think like the Raiders, who are probably hoping for one of those big pieces to fall their way, and instead now got to look around to see what's up.
Yeah, an organization that is in need, to say the least, of a true culture and tone setter, all of those things. That said, it was kind of funny just to follow along on social media yesterday after all of this news came down, because Steve Bisciotti, the owner of the Baltimore Ravens, was going on the podium discussing his rationale for moving on from John Harbaugh about 10, 15 minutes after this news came down, and he hadn't seen it yet. A reporter actually told him the news. Take a listen to this exchange.
He did? Is it official?
That's what I keep hearing. So, is he a candidate here?
Holy Mike, wouldn't that be awesome? Only if John takes the Pittsburgh job.
So that goes back into the trade element of this being necessary, but I thought that was kind of a funny, charming moment. Give me more Bisciotti press conferences.
That was a long one too.
It was it was over an hour.
Yeah, it was wild.
It was he and Eric DeCosta, though, so there were a lot of questions.
So I'm interested to look. The Ravens are obviously going to be very interesting. It is few. It's funny how we say it's few and far between this happens, but in the last few years it's happened quite a bit, where a job opening happens with a quarterback the level of Lamar Jackson. And obviously we just saw that happen with Herbert, and they got Harbaugh. So I will be interested to see, of course, what direction they want to go to here at this point.
Yep, Harbaugh making the rounds himself right now for some various interviews this morning. The New York Giants did. That was his first in-person visit, at least that we learned of. In terms of the Steelers, for their next head coaching odds, as they look for a new man for the first time since 2007 and just the fourth time since 69. Current betting favorite on the board, Chris Shula, so the Rams DC, son of Dave, grandson of Don.
Okay.
Plus 190 favorite there. Brian Flores 4-1. Robert Saleh 7-1. Kurt Signetti on the board at plus 750. He ain't going. Don't waste your bet there.
I saw this is a stupid conversation. It was the trade Tomlin to the Raiders for the first overall pick and then hire Signetti. We do this every year with like the hot prospect at quarterback. Get his head coach. He's going to come to you. Just relax.
Just chill.
We got to the Fernando Mendoza stuff does have to chill. He might be a very good quarterback. We're acting like he's Andrew Luck.
Yeah. To round out those names, by the way, for the Steelers, Jesse Minter 8-1, Vance Joseph plus 850.
Did you say this? I'm sorry. Speaking of Fernando Mendoza, in 15 minutes we're going to find out. I don't know if we told our audience. Actually, in 10 minutes now, Dante Morris is set to announce what he will do. Today is the deadline for these underclassmen to declare whether or not they're going to enter the NFL draft. And so we will find out in a matter of minutes whether or not Dante Moore will be another quarterback that is up to be drafted.
We did already tease that Brock Osweiler is going to be on the program a little bit later and kind of more so in the discussion about Fernando Mendoza. But I'll be curious what his opinion is on what Dante should or shouldn't do, basically based upon, what this decision ultimately ends up being. So that'll be a fun conversation coming up in hour 2. Let's get into some of the games that we do have going on this weekend, where we keep seeing the favorites flip back and forth in this Broncos and Bills game. And it's still available some places, depending on where you look, 1.5 either way. Pick them some spots. If the Broncos were to close a dog, it would be just the second time ever a 1 seed has been a home dog in the divisional round. And Sean Payton was asked about that on the podium this week.
They say you like being first. In this case, you're just a second to be an underdog as a 1 seed. Is that something to be?
Yeah, I can't control that. I don't. We don't pay attention to that, honestly.
Well, I hope it wasn't a motivating factor, because at DraftKings and some of these major books, you are the favorite once again here.
Yeah, I mean, they are, but they aren't. This is a pick'em game, because you even look at like DraftKings, it's 1.5, but it's shaded like minus 120 to the underdog side. The other spots that have the Broncos favored, it's minus 120 somewhere else. So, look, I think at the end of the day, this is a pick, but I don't think it should be. We got the news yesterday. Tyrell Shavers, of course, with a knee injury himself. That's a torn ACL. That's 2 torn ACLs for the Buffalo Bills for coming from that game. By the way,
Gabe Davis the other.
Yep, Gabe Davis the other. Kudos to Shavers. Did you see a snap post knee injury? He played over 20 snaps with a torn ACL in that game. And this is not to take away, because remember the year that Phillip Rivers did it, he tore the ACL and then he played in the AFC Championship game. But the torque you have to put on your knee with the torn ACL playing as a wide receiver is nuts. Anyway, so there's not that many bodies left. Yes, Ed Oliver returned to practice, so that seems like it's going to be a positive for them when it comes to their ailing run defense. But this is, and I will, it's one of those things where it's Stormy. If I get beat, then I get beat. But I'll take my chances with one of the best defenses in the field at home against what looks to be we'll call it a two-man army because James Cook is very good. But it's Josh Allen and it's Cook, and that's about it. And if the Broncos, can't pull this off at home, given the injury report, the skill positions for the Broncos, for the Bills, I think that I probably deserve to take it on the chin. So, as you mentioned, we talked about it yesterday. I took a Denver pick, and I would say this. The shops in which you're sitting at with these 1.5s either way, it's a good opportunity to tease them up.
Yeah.
So if you're sitting there somewhere and you have FanDuel, for example, you can still tease up the Broncos to that 7.5, and you can tease down like the Seahawks, for example, down to 1. Might be a pretty strong teaser league. It's
like that whole conversation we had last week in the Bills-Jags game where that number sat. And either way, you would have ended up being good. You talk about that Broncos defense. For inquiring minds, the Denver Broncos finished the regular season number 1 in the NFL in sacks, the 68th this year, tops in the league in red zone defense, surrendered touchdowns on just 42.6% of drives inside the 20, second best on opponent third downs. Opposing quarterbacks had the third lowest QBR against them, and that is why they posted the record that they did, because it was defense and Bo Nix coming alive in the fourth quarter. That was their recipe. We'll see what the recipe ends up being in the playoffs here. Total for this game, sitting 45.5. And one other injury update, but on the Broncos defensive side of this thing, linebacker Drake Greenlaw missed the last 2 games of the regular season and is trending up.
Did you like something here?
No.
No? Okay.
I mean, I agree with your thought process, and I lean Broncos, but I really want this for Josh Allen. So I think this game might be a relative stay away for me just because, my rooting interest in this are for Josh Allen and the Bills.
What's going to be stupid is if they lose this game. And
my mind says Denver, though.
Sure. And then we're going to have the stupid mouth breather conversation of, Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes were in the playoffs and you still couldn't get it done. It's like, but brother, he was asking the beer guy to play receiver for him, and yet here we are. We're probably going to have that stupid conversation as a mass. So they just think it's a tough spot for him at this point right now. So we'll see. And look, would I be shocked, too, if we get a low-scoring game and Bo Nix really isn't that great? Yeah. I don't think I would be.
Also, though, look at who the wide receivers are that he has, too.
Yeah,
it's Khalil Shakir, Brandon Cooks, who was awesome, by the way, Keon Coleman, and Curtis Samuel. He is designated to return. He's full participant at practice, so that is looking up as an option.
And think about, I know you have something here, but think about what they think about Keon Coleman. They asked the dude with the torn ACL to play more snaps than him in that game.
Yeah. After he was such a media darling, after he got drafted, too, there were all these high hopes. And then
eating the cookies.
Reminder, though, for you as we go through here, before the line moves each and every day, the sharp plays already there. January isn't about volume, guys. It's about precision. And here in the NFL postseason, we know limits rise, mistakes shrink, and timing matters more than ever. You're not going to outsmart billion-dollar sportsbooks or full-time sharps on your own, but with the sharp plays, you don't have to. And they have full transparency, giving you free daily reports, real-time alerts, market-moving insights, all delivered straight to your inbox or X feed. Backing it up with documented results and public logs since 2011. SharpPlays.com, trusted by the pros, monitored by the books. Stay ahead of the line this postseason at SharpPlays.com.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
So I've said before that one of the things that bothers me a lot is since you and I have become what I believe to be a very solid pairing here at the Vegas Stats and Information Network, I've become somewhat of your secretary.
That's not fair.
Now, what I mean by that for those who are just joining us is anytime I run into somebody and they'll go, "Oh, where's Stormy this weekend?" And my response is, "I don't know. You ask her." Even though I do, of course, know. I know pretty much a lot about your schedule.
Sometimes you say you don't know, even when you do know, just to
Yes, of course.
Just to be
ask her. So the other thing that I run into, which happened yesterday, I ran into our former colleague here at the Vegas Stats and Information Network and voice of the Running Rebels basketball and football, Matt Neverett. And we were talking, catching up. I haven't seen Matt for a while. I was covering the basketball game last night. Very good. We'll get to some of the results. And he said, how's Stormy doing? And I said, I don't know, dude. Ask her.
What's wrong with you?
And then his response was, she's great. And I was like, not really.
That's so nice. Thank you, Matt.
Not really.
I hope you're well. But no, that is, what's wrong with you? Why can't you just be like, oh, yeah, she's good?
Because I'm tired of it.
But it's like that simple.
Every person, Stormy's so great. Where's Stormy? Ask her. Ask her. If she's so great, then talk to her. Nobody tells me how great I am.
So this is where the hostility comes from with us on air every day.
Yes. 100%.
People do say you're great. What are you talking about?
100%. And then I have to hear during the show, like, people are so mean. They don't like me.
You're the one that's meaner to me than anyone. And now I see why. Now I understand where it comes from. You did you got a good game last night.
You did. UNLV did cover. They won outright. They were 2.5-point dogs yesterday. Looked like they were going to blow it, and ultimately did not. So UNLV moves. I think the bigger thing is, they're 3-2 in conference play. They're actually like a sneaky, solid defensive team. They got some good length. But I do think that when you look at it from the Boise State perspective, a very disappointing result, but not disappointing what Dante Morris has just announced for Oregon college football.
Here we go. Just came down from ESPN's Adam Schefter. Dante Morris has decided he will return to school for the 2026 season, foregoing a chance to be a top option in this year's class. Does that surprise you or not surprise you?
It surprised me a little bit. I guess, actually, no, because it's his choice. So, considering they got Raiola, but I think he's going to be the guy, so it doesn't really matter. I think it surprises me in the sense of, as we talked about yesterday, your odds to become the first overall pick can only become worse. I have it up right now. Fernando Mendoza is minus 1,200 to become the first overall selection. What do we think his odds go to? I would say it's like minus 5,000 now. Maybe even higher.
You think that high?
I just don't think there's any.
See it. But, how big of a difference in the average person's brain is minus 2,000 to minus 3,000 to minus 4,000? Granted, while yes, the impact there is much more significant to a normal person looking at the odds board and being willing to lay that number. I don't think there are many people out there that think that is that different and wouldn't be willing to bet it. So that would take massive amounts of money, right?
Wait, I'm sorry. So what are you asking
for someone who would have interest in betting that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so that's kind of where the limit or liability thought process comes in and how some of those numbers are set.
Sure. I just think that the true odds here. Even if the Raiders trade the pick, the assumption is that you're trading it for somebody who's moving up to get Fernando Mendoza. In what reality does it? What is the percentage shot here that he is not going to be? And I think the more fascinating thing now, as I have said 1,000 times, is what in the world do you set the number at for total quarterbacks in the first round this year?
Oh, yeah, it's
what
thrilling.
Do you do? Is it 1.5?
Yes.
The other now is Ty Simpson?
Trinidad Chambliss?
I have been wrong on this before, although, again, every single year we talk about this. I bet the 8 years it's had, it's 6-2 to the under. I don't think a 24-year-old quarterback who, again, if Chambliss, and this is my thought, if Chambliss had any idea, because they have an idea of where they're going to get drafted, if he had any shot of going in the first round, do you think he'd be fighting this hard to go back to college as a 24-year-old?
No.
Right? So I think you kind of know, if you're Chambliss, that, I'm probably not going to be a first-round pick. I just think
I keep refreshing the page here to see what this does. Mendoza minus 1,200. Mm-hmm. Dante Morris still on the board, obviously, at 9-1. So we'll see.
Do you grab, if it's still up for you right now, do you try to run to grab Ruben Bain at 30-1?
Or if you have a big bankroll, bet Fernando.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's kind of the approach right now. If you have those numbers available to you now, you either are that confident in Fernando Mendoza and you want to lay what is now a perceived cheap number on what this is going to go to. If in your mind you think it goes up to 5,000 after this, or you grab, a Ruben Bain or an Arvell Reese or something like that in that 30-plus range.
Yeah, this is obviously the ripple effects. And then for Oregon, you're talking about them. They're already going to be near the top of the national championship odds for next year, but you get Dante Moore back, so that's going to help. And then there's the impact. I guess, when does the transfer portal close? Essentially, I think did we already pass, or it's around the time you can look that up really quickly, because I bring this up because did Dylan Raiola actually understand that he was going to potentially be the backup?
2 days. The main window will close in 2 days.
Or do we
But that was the report, right? And so that was the question that you and I had in the moment when we saw that come out. Because at first, when I saw that Dylan Raiola transferring to Oregon, my first thought was, okay, that means Dante Moore's declaring because he thinks that he's going to be the guy. Comes back from this injury, he's the dude. But then you actually brought up the comp of what Dante Moore did under Dylan Gabriel, and hey, maybe you just take a year to sit back, see how another guy operates. By the way,
kudos to you. I thought of it because of your great interview with Dante Moore.
That's very sweet.
By the way,
oh no, he's being nice to me, everybody. Shoot.
By the way, FanDuel, Fernando Mendoza minus 4,000 to be the first overall pick. Now, Ruben Bain is at 50-1. So just throw that out there.
DraftKings still hasn't moved.
Yeah, so maybe if you want to
they
grab a stale number.
They took Dante down, but they haven't moved any of their other numbers.
Yeah, so if you want to grab a stale number, it's moving right now as we speak, so let's see what they decide to move it to. But, yeah, we're looking minus 2,500. Yeah, so I think the FanDuel number of like minus 4,000 seems a little bit more accurate here.
Okay.
I just don't think that's going to be the case.
And again, you did mention Ty Simpson, but that was news as well for anybody who missed it, that he did officially declare as well that is where he's moving. So those are our current odds board, at least on DraftKings. Fernando Mendoza minus 2,500. You said on FanDuel 5,000. Trinidad
4,000,
excuse me.
And then Fernando Mendoza just went to minus 5,000. Look at that.
So there you go. You're a genius.
Look at that. I just don't think that's the case. Even if the
Back
Raiders,
down to 2,500. They're all over the place.
But
this is going to keep moving until it's not.
Even if the Raiders, by the way, as they go to minus 2,500, FanDuel goes to minus 7,000. So like this is all over the place in terms of where we're going to be. But the whole point here being, even if the Raiders aren't the team making the selection, I think you're moving up for what now clearly is by default the best quarterback in the class.
Yep. Interesting.
I am fascinated.
I still don't get the Joe Burrow thing.
Well, no, I don't either. But I am fascinated to see what that number is going to be. I'm willing to bet it's going to be 1.5 for total quarterbacks in the first round. And the thought would be that it's going to be Ty Simpson that sneaks into the back end of the first round. But I just don't know if I don't know if he's a first round selection.
People, I think, especially media and the people that do the mock drafts, fall so deeply in love with quarterbacks that they make the argument for them. And thus, I think, like year after year, you get such better numbers on whatever the under is for that because of that, like, love affair that you have with the position. Could we be in that spot this year where Trinidad or whomever it is just gets hyped up to high heaven? There are multiple teams in the National Football League, let's face it, that need quarterbacks. We thought this year was going to be the draft class that you got them. It obviously is not. But could there be somebody that just makes that move on the board?
There could, but I would go back to... So let's go back to the year that Kenny Pickett got drafted. That was the year that I believe it was Malik Willis that came out. There's a couple of others in there. And that whole year, and we'll see what some of the analysis about these guys in their games. If only there was a second-round quarterback that we could ask about this sort of thing. Brock Osweiler will be joining us a little bit later.
Good tease.
But I go back to that year because every bit of film analysis for these people that actually know what they're talking about was, man, these guys are like second or third round picks in any other draft. But we're going to set the number at 3.5 because we think they're going to go. And Kenny Pickett was the only one that went in the first round. And so I think this is shaping up to potentially be one of those drafts again, where a lot of people might think, hey, man, these teams need quarterbacks, extra year of control. They're going to reach. When the reality is, why wouldn't I just go get a edge rusher, an offensive tackle, any of these other strong positions that can help my team, and then I'll go and get one of these quarterbacks a little bit later. And as we're talking, like everything's moving around.
I was going to say, this odds board is just like Christmas lights, the way that it's going all over the place. The current numbers, Fernando out to minus 8,000 on DraftKings. Trinidad Chambliss, your second shot on the board, but it's 30-1. Ruben Bain and Arvell Reese at 60-1 apiece.
Yeah. Man, and again, I'll say, you mentioned it. I know the report said that Dylan Raiola was fine with this, but that might be one of those things where it was like, yeah, I'm fine. Thinking because he's not coming back.
Because why would you?
Yeah, exactly. Why would you?
Aye.
Because, yeah, and here's the other thing. Arch Manning, if he came out now, would be the first overall pick.
So you should
next year
expand on that briefly, because you were making the case earlier for, like, just come out.
Oh, if you're Tom Brady, there's no way that you're not talking to him before the deadline in trying to just say.
You got 48 hours, man.
Well, no, that's the transfer portal.
For the transfer portal, yeah.
The deadline today is to declare.
Yep.
That's why more announced today. I mean, you probably got to go up to the wire. Just like, Arch, just come out. We're going to draft.
Please.
Yep, but it doesn't seem to be the case right now.
Good reminder for anybody who, if you like VSiN's content, you're listening to us now, I know you do. If you want to get in and be a full-time pro subscriber to get access to everything we do have a special going on right now with the NFL postseason going on ahead of the Super Bowl. Big Game 60, we're giving you $60 off our VSiN Pro annual subscription. You just need to use our promo code MONEY at sign-up. That gets you full unlimited access to the daily best bets from all of our show hosts and guests. Real-time betting splits, DraftKings, Circa, AI-powered prop tools, 24/7 video, plus all of our betting guides as they come out as well. VSiN.com/subscribe. Promo code MONEY to save you $60 off on a VSiN Pro annual subscription. The Big Game 60 deal. Get in there. We'll be right back.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
So we did get got some breaking news the back half of last segment as we welcome you back here to Money Moves, Sirius XM Channel 158 on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. That Dante Morris, the current quarterback of the Oregon Ducks, will officially be coming back to the program instead of declaring for the draft. And we saw the odds board for who will be the number one pick just light up. Fernando Mendoza was already a significant odds-on number, but that went from like minus 1,200 out to minus 8,000, depending on where you look and the like. And I was laughing, too, at Jeff G., who tweeted into the program, say, you're saying Fernando is the odds-on favorite. Yes, that's well done, well played. Yeah. You know my pet peeve is when people say an odds-on favorite that is not an odds-on favorite.
And by the way,
very, very significant.
I would say, too, if you really are in the market for thinking that Trinidad Chambliss can be a first overall selection instead of Fernando Mendoza, look around. DraftKings has him as the second choice at 30-1. He's 75-1 over at FanDuel. So
okay.
Always just shop around for some of these numbers.
That's just a good reminder in any market, in anything that you're doing here. Have multiple options, sports books, apps, whatever it is, so that you can shop around at these different numbers, because every place is different based on the bets that they are specifically taking. That said, real quickly, you brought up an interesting point in the commercial break to me about how social media currently feels about the New York Jets.
Well, everybody's mocking them because the whole thought was that Dante Morris was going to go number 2, and that was going to be the New York Jets who were going to select him. But I would just throw out there that, remember, the New York Jets now have, as we know, multiple first-round picks. They have the 2 first-round picks for the Indianapolis Colts. They have their pick this year. So I'm very curious. I mean, I think what's going to be interesting here is if you're New York, does this maybe push you into action in pooling together some of those selections to get that pick from the Raiders? And if you're the Raiders, you're a team that's doing your due diligence. Let's say you come out of this and say, oh, you know what? Fernando Mendoza, good kid, might be a pretty good quarterback, but maybe not worth the first overall selection. And we might get multiple first-round picks from a team that might not be good next year. And we could maybe be back in this position again next season. Hell, we could have all those picks be this bad and have the position to be maybe first or second with whatever the Jets give us. Again, nothing is given and nothing is guaranteed. But I don't think it is. I think Fernando Mendoza is locked in as the first overall pick to as much as you can lock in a kid to be there. But I don't think it's locked in that it's the Raiders that make that pick. And I think that's something worth considering, especially as some of these markets populate, who's going to select which player, team to player, all those sort of things. Just keeping that in mind, because I think this might push the Jets into action potentially. It's always a potential outcome.
Do the Raiders desperately need a quarterback? Obviously. But I think to the point you're making, like, everyone has their price as well.
Yes.
And if you can get a deal that's going to set you up for the future, you might as well take it. We did actually hear, by the way, Dante Moore as he was making his announcement and as this all became official on SportsCenter. Take a listen.
Yeah, of course, first things first, I have to give glory to God for, of course, letting me be on this platform I am, the blessings he's given me. Yeah, this past year was a year that I'll remember for the rest of my life. Just my teammates, the adversity we went through, and just the way to be able to, as a kid, to play in the semifinals. And, of course, the year didn't end the way you wanted to end. And, of course, got to give your kudos and credit to Indiana. But, yeah, with this decision, mainly all my life, it's kind of just been, being as most prepared as I can for any situation I go into. And when it comes to me just making my decision, of course, I want to feel most prepared and, this is best for my situation, especially as a quarterback. And with my decision, it's been very tough. I prayed a lot about it, talked to many people, my mentors, and people I just look up to. And with that being said, of course, I'll be coming back to Oregon for one more year and being able to play for the Oregon Ducks and, of course, reach our goal and be national champions.
And obviously, like he mentions the preparation element of it. Pete Thamel did a good job pointing out just how young Dante Moore is. He is only 20. He has only made 20 career starts. Obviously, yes, he started his career at UCLA and was kind of thrown into the fire, but having that year to sit back and learn behind Dylan Gabriel paid dividends for him, put him in the position that he's being talked about the way that he is now. Can he build on that and maybe, be back in the college football playoff and win a national championship? Like that's the only thing that will really, as we talk about what that stock looks like, improve it, because it feels like it can only go down, as you referenced.
And only because it's so high, we should say. Yeah.
He is the number 2 guy that was discussed as maybe a toss-up for a moment there with Fernando Mendoza. So we'll see what this looks like. You really hope that it's not a Garrett Nussmeier type situation like we saw in the past, and best of luck to him. Let's stick with the college theme, though.
Can we pause really quickly and just say, On3 is reporting, and shout out to iHeart SEC Podcast who sent this into us on Twitter. They are reporting that Dylan Raiola will indeed sit behind Dante Moore. So that confirms the reports we heard earlier. We were questioning whether that was the case. Sounds like that is it. So the quarterback depth chart for Oregon is Dante Morris and Dylan Raiola going into next year.
It's a pretty good position to be in
Pretty
if you're
good.
the Oregon
Ducks.
Ducks.
And it's good for Dylan
Lanning.
Raiola. I mean, Dan Lanning and the Ducks, I mean, they say what you want. You mentioned it. They have a growing track record of developing these quarterbacks. And if that works for Dylan Raiola, a guy who is, I thought this was a great point brought up by a lot of college analysts, which was Raiola has been a journeyman, if you will, and mercurial. He's been all over the place, high schools, colleges. So for him to now essentially be in a system for what will be 2 years, next year and the year that he eventually starts, that's actually pretty good for him. And maybe you're going to have, finally, the ability to capture the upside of what Dylan Raiola was coming into college.
And have him get healthy, be that quarterback in waiting type of a role. My one question to follow up that would be, how much of that would you say was Will Stein, who is now going to be the head coach at Kentucky? So take that into account, I guess, as well. But a great situation if you're Dan Lanning and the Ducks right now. We only have a couple more minutes left in this segment, but we were talking about your experience last night watching Boise State UNLV and the Rebels being able to get that win in overtime, huge for them. But there were a lot of really good results last night as well, whether it be Iowa State getting upset as the number 2 team in the country. Some buzzer
beat down. That was crazy.
Embarrassed at Allen Fieldhouse, to say the least. As a 3.5-point road favorite in that spot as well, mind you. We had some buzzer beaters, though. Shout out Minnesota. So what did you think of the night as a whole?
Yeah, did you watch that? I mean, that sequence between Minnesota and Wisconsin is ridiculous. John Blackwell for Wisconsin hits a 26-footer. They end up winning as a 1.5-point favorite, 78-75. But that followed Kate Tyson, who hit a 25-footer that had tied the game with about 5 seconds left. You had Seton Hall last night, who was a 6.5-point dog, looked like they were on their way to getting blown out. And instead, they overcome an 18-point deficit. And with less than 30 seconds left, have the ball down 3 with the potential chance to tie the game. They end up losing. They do cover. And then you get Creighton, who hits, I think it was Swartz, who hits a game-tying 3-pointer with 17 seconds left. They go on to win in overtime. Then you mentioned the game I was at last night, Boise State. Drew Fielder, he hits a game-tying buzzer beater. And UNLV has to go to overtime against Boise State, and they eventually win the game there. So last night was incredible. Some of the results, too. I mean, shout out, I apologize to put salt in the wound. Our guy, Adam Burke, I don't know if you saw Air Force San Jose State. He had the under here. Game goes over by a half point. 2 teams combined to score 12 points in the final 30 seconds to get that over just by the half point. And then those of you who had maybe bet under in Texas A&M and Tennessee, goes to double overtime. Game does not go over until the second overtime period yesterday. So a raucous night, I thought, in college basketball yesterday. It was a ton of fun. And today sets up really nicely for some really interesting matchups that we're going to see, both in the top 25. By the way, because we're going to see with Michigan today on the road against Washington. What a week for Wisconsin. Wisconsin over the weekend goes out to Michigan in Ann Arbor and beats the Wolverines. And then you follow that up by going out to Minnesota. And as we had mentioned yesterday, Golden Gophers got some pretty solid pelts on the wall playing out there at home. And you get that done as well. So pretty wild week. But Michigan going on the road against Washington, having to recover from losing that game over the weekend. A lot of really interesting games. TCU and BYU is going to be a ton of fun. Last time we saw them was, I believe, the Utah game, Civil War there. So a lot of really good matchups today that I'm very much looking forward to. And just top 25 teams being tested potentially on the road. Vandy against Texas and Michigan against Washington.
Yeah, Vandy, one of what is now, after the Iowa State loss, just 4 undefeated teams remaining in college basketball. So Vandy's a 5.5-point favorite at Texas. Arizona, another one of those undefeated teams, number 1 ranked team in the country, laying 21.5 against their in-state rival in ASU. Nebraska, you mentioned, and the Miami of Ohio stayed undefeated with their win over the Chips.
The win, it was 100-61.
Yes.
They're incredible. I think they're now, 12-3 against the spread? I know they're 18-0. A couple of those games weren't lined, or at least some of the archives I was looking at. But that team continues to cover these numbers.
161 final.
I'm amazed. I was watching that yesterday. I was texting our boy Adam while I was watching everything. That's incredible. I wanted to point this out, too. So Vandy on the road against Texas today. We saw this open 5. We're down to 4 at multiple spots.
4 now.
Interesting enough that because the projections have this around a 6-point spread, but you do wonder what this looks like for Vandy. You know, they've played a couple of away games, but we've seen them get tested in a few. Namely, the big one was they went out to Memphis and they got pushed to overtime, 77-70 here. So we'll see if maybe this is going to be something that actually does push them coming off of consecutive home games. But first true road spot against Texas in about 2 weeks. And for Texas, look, they haven't really played particularly well. Lost at home to Mississippi State. But situationally for Vanderbilt, I think it makes some sense to go on the road in conference play pretty tough and very quietly looking ahead to this weekend where all of a sudden you have to play host to a red-hot Florida team that looks like they're maybe starting to figure things out a little bit. I shouldn't say red-hot, but they've won 7 out of the last 8, and they've won 3 straight in SEC play.
So good. A great day of college hoops last night, pushing it forward to tonight, this coming weekend. March Madness is going to be here before you know it as well, which a good reminder, our March Madness betting guide, too. That's part of it. If you're a VSiN Pro subscriber, VSiN.com/subscribe, you get access to all of the stuff we do with the website in addition to our guides. We got to step aside. When we come back, though, kicking off hour 2 of the program, more football on the way, and we need to hear some more audio from Ravens owner Steve Bisciotti. He was on one yesterday.